Every country has laws to maintain order. But some laws feel less like serious regulations and more like a practical joke written by a government with a very weird sense of humor. We have found 48 real laws, each from a single country, that are so brilliantly dumb and bafflingly specific, they will make you question the very nature of rules themselves. 1. In 1949, the Canadian government passed a law that made it a crime to publish any comic book depicting crime. This wasn't a nuanced rule against excessive violence. It was a legislative sledgehammer so clumsy it accidentally outlawed the entire concept of a superhero story. A comic showing a hero stopping a bank robber was, by the letter of the law, itself a criminal product. This one act of spectacular wrong-headedness didn't just censor an industry, it completely eviscerated Canada's domestic comic book scene for an entire generation. A cultural self-sabotage born from pure moral panic. 2. In observant Jewish communities in Israel, you cannot press an elevator button on the Sabbath, as it violates the prohibition against igniting a spark. To solve this, many buildings are equipped with Shabbat elevators. These automated marvels stop on every single floor, moving in a slow, continuous loop for 25 hours. It's a mesmerizing fusion of ancient religious law and modern engineering. A weekly, slow-motion vertical pilgrimage that turns a simple elevator ride into a profound act of faith. 3. In Brazil, voting is less of a civic duty and more of a mandatory subscription service for being a citizen. If you don't show up to vote, the state doesn't just fine you. It can cancel your access to basic life features. Want a passport to go on vacation? Sorry, your civic subscription has lapsed. Need a loan from a state bank? Access denied. Imagine having to explain to your friends that you can't go to Cancun because you were too hungover to vote for city councilor in 2022. 4. If you're a new parent in New Zealand, don't even think about naming your child Lucifer. The country's registrar of births has the power to reject names deemed too offensive or impractical, and Lucifer is on the official blacklist. The list also includes titles like King, Messiah, and Justice. It's a fascinating example of a government stepping in to perform a crucial public service, acting as the last line of defense between a newborn child and a lifetime of regret caused by their parents' terrible, terrible judgment. 5. An old law remains on the books in Thailand that forbids leaving your home without wearing underwear. Forget for a moment the cultural implications and consider the sheer impossibility of enforcement. What would that even look like? Because it can't be policed in reality, the law has migrated into a different realm. It has become a piece of legislative folklore, a strange mental footnote that exists only to create a brief, phantom moment of anxiety when you're getting dressed. The law doesn't need police to enforce it. It polices itself through the sheer power of awkwardness. 6. Monaco is home to the world's most glamorous casino, the Monte Carlo. But there's one group of people who are legally forbidden from gambling there: the citizens of Monaco themselves. This rule was the brainchild of the principality's 19th century ruler who wanted the casino's revenue to fund his state so his people wouldn't have to pay taxes. His solution? Let foreigners lose all their money, but ban the locals to protect them. It's the ultimate irony. Their tax-free paradise is funded by a party they're not allowed to attend. 7. In a fascinating twist of legal philosophy, the nation of Mexico does not consider the act of escaping from prison to be a crime. The reasoning is that the desire for freedom is such a powerful and innate human instinct that the law cannot, in good conscience, punish it. This creates a beautiful paradox. The state will deploy its full power to hunt you down and recapture you, all while the legal code itself seems to be quietly rooting for you to get away. 8. Cambodia's New Year's celebration, a joyous, countrywide water fight, fell victim to a bizarre government crackdown on fun. The authorities banned the use of high-powered water guns, claiming they were a source of public disorder. This decision effectively forced a modern tradition back into the dark ages of water warfare, the era of the bucket and hose. The elegant, long-range tactical advantage of a super soaker has been replaced by the clumsy medieval act of just dumping water on people. 9. In the United Arab Emirates, sending the wrong emoji can have life-altering financial consequences. Under their strict cybercrime laws, a middle finger emoji sent in a message can be classified as an obscene gesture, an offense that carries a potential fine of up to 250,000 dirhams, or about $65,000 US. It might be the single most expensive nonverbal communication in human history. A chilling reminder that in the 21st century, a single tap on a piece of glass can literally bankrupt you. 10. A Kentucky law makes it illegal to dye a baby chick or duckling an unnatural color, a noble effort to stop them from being sold as disposable Easter toys. But then comes the fine print, and it's a masterclass in absurdity. The law only applies if you are selling them in quantities of less than 6. This creates a bizarre moral calculus. The law sends a crystal-clear message. Cruelty is a crime when it's a small-time hobby, but it's a perfectly acceptable business model when you do it at industrial scale. 11. In South Africa, if you find yourself in a standoff between your car and a herd of goats, the goats win. Legally. The country's Road Traffic Act isn't a gentle suggestion. It's a mandate that gives herded livestock the absolute right-of-way over all vehicles. This isn't just about sharing the road. It's a legal recognition of a different kind of authority. It means that for a few minutes on a rural road, the traffic laws of man are suspended, and you are living under the slow, deliberate, and legally untouchable jurisdiction of a flock of sheep. 12. In most places, hopping on an unsecured Wi-Fi network is a minor social faux pas. In Singapore, it's a fast track to a felony. The country's laws treat unauthorized Wi-Fi access not as borrowing, but as hacking, and the penalties are severe. Think a $10,000 fine or even a 3-year prison sentence. It's a system that builds a digital fortress around every router, turning the casual act of checking your email on a neighbor's network into a high-stakes cybercrime. It's a powerful message that in Singapore, even the airwaves have heavily armed border patrols. 13. Packing for a trip to Japan? You might want to double-check your medicine cabinet because your common cold remedy could be considered contraband. Due to incredibly strict anti-stimulant laws, everyday over-the-counter drugs like Sudafed or even Vicks inhalers are illegal. Tourists have been detained for weeks just for having them in their luggage. This creates a terrifying scenario where you, a law-abiding citizen with a stuffy nose, can be accidentally rebranded as an international drug trafficker by the Japanese legal system, all because you just wanted to breathe through your nostrils again. 14. For years, the nation of Norway operated under a bizarre tax logic. If you owned a device that could theoretically receive a public broadcast, you owed the government a TV license fee. This didn't just apply to televisions. It meant your laptop, your tablet, even your smartphone was considered a taxable receiver. Even if you never watched a single second of state programming, your iPhone sitting in your pocket was seen by the government as a freeloading media consumer. It was a mandatory subscription fee for a service you had no intention of ever using. 15. The state of Iowa holds a strange, lonely place in its law books for a very specific type of artist. It is illegal for a one-armed piano player to charge money for a performance. This isn't a bizarre fever dream, it's a real statute. The law doesn't forbid them from playing in public. It only forbids them from getting paid. What forgotten, hyper-specific turf war in Iowa's musical history led to this? We may never know, but the result is a law that singles out a group of musicians and legally transforms their professional careers into a compulsory, unpaid hobby. 16. In London, a law from 1839 makes it illegal to shake or beat a carpet in the street after 8 o'clock in the morning. This wasn't just a quirky rule, it was a desperate act of atmospheric self-defense in a city choking on its own filth. You have to imagine the pre-8 a.m. chaos. A citywide, synchronized cloud of dust erupting as thousands of households beat their rugs at once. The law does, however, grant a special exemption for doormats, which can be beaten at any time. It's a charming glimpse into a past where even the act of cleaning had to be put on a strict schedule. 17. Why did the chicken cross the road? In the town of Quitman, Georgia, it didn't, because its owner would have faced a fine. A city ordinance makes it illegal for chickens to cross any road within the city limits. Of course, the law is aimed at the owners, requiring them to keep their animals contained. But in the process, it has provided the most bureaucratic, definitive, and soul-crushingly unfunny answer to one of history's greatest jokes. The chicken's philosophical journey was canceled due to a municipal code violation. 18. The city of Boulder, Colorado, has a law that seems like an act of profound self-hatred. It is illegal to keep a boulder on your lawn. A local ordinance forbids residents from placing or even leaving large rocks on their property outside of a planned landscaping project. Let that sink in. The city named Boulder has officially declared that its own namesake is a public nuisance. It's a level of irony so pure, it feels like it was written for a sitcom. You have to wonder what's next for them. Banning the color blue in the city of Bluefield? 19. In Turin, Italy, being a dog owner comes with a legally binding exercise regimen. A city law requires you to walk your dog at least 3 times a day, with failure to do so resulting in fines up to 500 euros. This is a fantastic step for animal welfare that also creates the hilarious image of a new kind of police state. Imagine officers patrolling parks, not looking for criminals, but for dogs that look a little too bored. It elevates a poodle's right to a good walk to a matter of municipal law, and you, the owner, are the one on probation. 20. Here is a beautiful, poetic law from 19th century Scotland. It is illegal to be drunk while in charge of a cow. This isn't folklore, it's from the Licensing Act of 1872, written to combat the very real problem of intoxicated farmers causing chaos with their livestock. But the law's true genius is in its fine print. The prohibition also extends to being drunk while in charge of a horse, a carriage, or, and this is the magnificent part, a steam engine. It's a single sentence of legislation that perfectly captures a world of absolute Victorian mayhem. 21. In most countries, a speeding ticket is an annoyance. In Finland, it can be a financial catastrophe. The country uses a day fine system, where the penalty is calculated based on your daily income. This is designed to make the punishment feel equal for everyone, but it also creates some truly breathtaking fines. One millionaire was famously slapped with a $60,000 ticket for going just a little over the speed limit. It's a system that can turn a minor traffic violation into a bill more expensive than the car you were driving. 22. The state of Connecticut has a law that answers a question you've probably never asked. What legally separates a pickle from just a sad, wet cucumber? The answer, according to a 1948 court ruling, is bounce. For a pickle to be officially recognized as such, it must bounce when dropped from a height of 1 foot. This law implies the very real, historical existence of a government official whose job was to be a pickle bouncer, standing in a lab, solemnly dropping cucumbers and judging their structural integrity before they could go to market. 23. In Manila, the government decided to solve its catastrophic traffic problem by putting everyone's car in a weekly timeout. A number coding law bans vehicles from the roads 1 day a week based on the last digit of their license plate. If your plate ends in a 1 or a 2, congratulations, your car is legally grounded every Monday. It's an extraordinary system that turns your daily commute into a game of bureaucratic roulette, where the simple act of driving to work can become a criminal offense depending on what day of the week it is. 24. Portugal has a law on its books that is both profoundly understandable and logistically impossible. It is illegal to urinate in the ocean. While we can all agree with the sentiment, how on earth could this ever be enforced? It conjures up a hilarious image of a specialized maritime police unit, floating offshore with advanced thermal cameras and salinity detectors, their sole mission to bust swimmers making a subtle, personal contribution to the Atlantic. It's a law that exists purely in the realm of good intentions and wild imagination. 25. The French winemaking town of Châteauneuf-du-Pape has a very specific zoning law. Flying saucers are forbidden from landing in its vineyards. In 1954, the mayor issued a formal decree banning flying cigars and UFOs, a brilliant publicity stunt that put the town on the map. The decree was never repealed, which means it technically remains in effect today. So if any alien civilization is planning an intergalactic wine tour of Earth, they better check local ordinances first, lest their mothership gets slapped with a celestial parking ticket. 26. An archaic law still lingering in the state of Vermont requires a woman to get written permission from her husband to wear false teeth. Let that sink in. This 19th century statute meant that a man's legal authority over his household extended all the way into his wife's mouth. While it's thankfully no longer enforced, it remains a fossil in the legal code, a perfect, jaw-dropping monument to an era when a woman's access to basic dental prosthetics was subject to a spousal approval process. 27. In Paraguay, you can legally challenge someone to a duel. But there's a catch that is a masterpiece of bureaucratic dark comedy. Both participants must be registered blood donors. The logic seems to be that if you're going to engage in an activity that might result in significant blood loss, you should have the common courtesy to have already contributed to the national supply. It's a system that beautifully merges civic responsibility with personal vengeance, like a buy one, get one deal for honor and public health. 28. Switzerland, a country famous for its pristine order, has taken a firm legal stance against a very specific type of freedom. You are not allowed to go hiking in the nude. A federal Supreme Court ruling officially banned the practice after a German tourist took the concept of communing with nature a bit too literally in the Alps. It's a perfect reflection of the national character. In the meticulously organized landscape of Switzerland, even the act of joyful, liberating rebellion must be properly dressed and follow the rules. 29. In France, there is a law that protects the dignity of one of its most famous historical figures from a very specific threat. It is illegal to name your pig Napoleon. This rule hails from an era when the honor of the emperor was considered so sacred that it could be tarnished by a farm animal. It represents a level of national pride so intense that it extends into the barnyard. What does it say about your country's greatest conqueror if his reputation can be threatened by an animal best known for rolling in mud? 30. A law in Bolivia serves as a shocking time capsule of institutional sexism. It makes it illegal for a married woman to drink more than one glass of wine in a public establishment. The supposed reason? The fear that any more alcohol could make her morally lax. Her husband, of course, faces no such restrictions. It's an astoundingly archaic piece of legislation that remains on the books, a rule that attempts to measure a woman's virtue in 5-ounce pours, and in doing so, reveals everything about its own lack of morality. 31. If you feel the music and want to start dancing in a Swedish bar that doesn't have a specific license for it, you might be breaking the law. For decades, the country required a special Dansstillstand, or dancing permit, to allow patrons to move to the music. The law was designed to control public gatherings, but it effectively created the hilarious crime of spontaneous dancing. It's a perfect example of a bureaucracy so thorough that it felt the need to create official paperwork to regulate the basic human impulse of tapping your feet to a good song. 32. For many years in Cuba, the simple act of having a private internet connection in your home was illegal. The government enforced a strict monopoly on information, relegating citizens to state-run Wi-Fi hotspots in public parks, where an hour of access could cost a huge chunk of a monthly salary. It was a powerful system of control that weaponized inconvenience. It turned the gateway to the modern world into an expensive, monitored, and legally risky luxury, forcing people to literally sit on a park bench just to glimpse the outside world. 33. In the city of Milan, Italy, a very old law requires citizens to smile at all times in public. The only exceptions are for funerals and hospital visits. While it's no longer enforced, this relic from the Austro-Hungarian Empire was never repealed. meaning it's still technically illegal to look grumpy while waiting for the bus. It's the ultimate form of government overreach, a law that doesn't just regulate your actions, but attempts to regulate your facial expression. It's a beautiful, dystopian artifact from a time when the city decided that a bad mood wasn't just a feeling, but a minor public offense. 34. In several Caribbean nations, including Trinidad and Tobago, wearing camouflage clothing is illegal for anyone not in the military. This isn't a fashion critique from the government. It's a deadly serious national security issue. The law is strictly enforced to prevent gang members and criminals from impersonating soldiers to commit crimes. It creates a surreal situation for unsuspecting tourists, where a trendy pair of camo shorts isn't just a questionable fashion choice, but a criminal act that could get you arrested before you even make it to the beach. 35. The legal system in the Philippines has managed to criminalize a feeling we've all had: the desire to punish someone for simply being an insufferable human being. The crime is called unjust vexation, a wonderfully ambiguous charge that covers anything that annoys or irritates another person without a good reason. It's the law's attempt to answer an age-old philosophical question. At what point does having a terrible, grating personality stop being a personal flaw and start becoming a matter for the police? 36. In the Canadian city of Petroleia, Ontario, it is illegal to whistle between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. The local bylaw was created to curb excessive noise, but its wording effectively outlaws spontaneous expressions of joy after dark. What constitutes an emergency whistle versus a cheerful one? The law doesn't say. It's the ultimate government-mandated buzzkill, a rule that suggests in this quiet town, your happiness is welcome, but only during officially sanctioned business hours. 37. It is illegal to ride a camel on a public highway in Nevada. This law isn't a random joke. It's a ghost of one of America's strangest military experiments. In the 1850s, the U.S. Army created a camel corps for desert transport. The project failed, and the camels were eventually set loose, wandering the desert and startling horses on new roads. The law was passed to deal with this bizarre problem. The camels are long gone, but the law remains, a lonely legal monument to a forgotten chapter of American history. 38. In Indonesia, a broad and severe blasphemy law carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. The definition of blasphemy is so wide, it has been used to prosecute people for seemingly minor acts. A woman was jailed for complaining that the local mosque's loudspeaker was too loud. It's a terrifying legal landscape where a simple expression of personal frustration can be twisted into a major crime against the state, effectively turning religious sensitivity into a weapon against free speech. 39. The United Kingdom has a law that creates a perfect, beautiful, and inescapable paradox. It is illegal to be drunk in a pub. This isn't a modern rule. It's from the Licensing Act of 1872. The law makes it an offense for the owner to permit drunkenness and for the customer to be drunk. This means that an establishment whose entire business model is based on selling alcohol is legally forbidden from allowing its customers to successfully use the product. It's a piece of legislative genius that is brilliantly and profoundly British. 40. If you've ever fantasized about dramatically interrupting a wedding like in a movie, you should avoid trying it in South Australia. It's a criminal offense to intentionally disrupt a wedding or funeral ceremony, punishable by a $10,000 fine and up to 2 years in prison. It's the legal system's way of saying, this isn't a romantic comedy, and you are not the star. The law ensures that any dramatic, last-minute objections will be saved for your own court hearing. 41. In the Canadian province of Alberta, it is illegal to slap a coat of paint on a wooden ladder. Now, this isn't a war on creativity, it's a war on stupidity. The government correctly figured out that a fresh layer of barn red is the perfect way to hide the fact that your ladder is basically a collection of splinters waiting to betray you. This law exists because humanity proved it could not be trusted with the combined technologies of a ladder and a paintbrush. It's the government's way of saying, we would rather you use an ugly ladder that works than a beautifully painted express elevator to the emergency room. 42. In North Korea, blue jeans are more than just a piece of clothing. They are a symbol of Western corruption and are therefore illegal. The regime views denim as a tool of American imperialism, a forbidden fabric that represents a world of freedom and individuality. Government enforcers patrol the streets, watching for this and other fashion crimes. It's a level of totalitarian control so absolute that it extends into your closet, turning a simple pair of Levi's into a silent, wearable act of political rebellion. 43. Some laws are so incredibly specific you know they must be the tombstone of a truly ridiculous story. In Denmark, it is illegal to start your car if you are aware that someone is underneath it. The crime isn't hitting them. It's the simple act of turning the key. This goes beyond basic safety and into the realm of hyper-literal pre-crime prevention. You can't help but wonder what chaotic series of events unfolded that forced the Danish government to officially outlaw the opening scene of a slapstick comedy. 44. In Germany, it is a legally protected right for most office workers to have a window with a view of the sky. The country's detailed workplace regulations mandate that permanent workstations must have a connection to the outside world, effectively banning a purely internal, artificially lit office. It's a law that codifies a deeply human need. It's the German government officially recognizing that even when you're working, you have a fundamental right not to feel like you're trapped in a beige box deep underground. 45. During certain periods in Malaysia, wearing the color yellow can get you arrested. The color became the symbol of a massive pro-democracy protest movement, and in response, the government banned it. They declared yellow t-shirts, banners, and wristbands to be a threat to national security. This act transformed an innocent primary color into a potent symbol of defiance. It's a rare and fascinating case where a government, in trying to suppress a movement, accidentally gave it its most powerful and easily recognizable uniform. 46. In Oklahoma, you can be fined for making an ugly face at a dog. This law, intended to stop people from antagonizing animals, is a masterpiece of legislative absurdity. It creates the hilarious mental image of a police officer writing a ticket, citing the specific nature of the facial contortion. It's a law that forces you to wonder, what exactly is the legal definition of an ugly face? And more importantly, would the dog be required to testify in court about the emotional distress it caused? 47. The nation of Eswatini has a law that seems to have been ripped from a fantasy novel. Witches are forbidden from flying their broomsticks higher than 150 meters. This isn't a joke. It's reportedly part of the country's Civil Aviation Authority regulations. The government isn't banning witchcraft, it's just regulating its airspace. This represents a breathtakingly pragmatic approach to superstition, subjecting magical practices to the same altitude restrictions as a Cessna. One has to wonder, do they also need to file a flight plan? 48. In the United Kingdom, it is illegal to handle a salmon under suspicious circumstances. This is not a joke. It's Section 32 of the Salmon Act of 1986. The law was created to combat the trade of illegally poached fish, but the wording is a masterpiece of ambiguity that sparks the imagination. What exactly constitutes a suspicious handling of a salmon? Are you wearing a trench coat and hiding in an alley? Are you glancing around nervously while stuffing it into a briefcase? It's a beautifully British law that turns every fishmonger into a potential character in a John le Carré spy novel. So, after a worldwide tour of legal madness, one thing is clear. The human capacity for creating bizarre, baffling, and hilarious rules is truly limitless. Most of these laws are just absurd, but one of them is genuinely sinister and has no place in the modern world. I have my opinion. Now, I want yours. Which law is it? If your brain enjoys being broken like this, prove it by hitting subscribe and lighting up that like button.